Ethan Miller woke up as the first light touched the sky. The sun was still low, painting soft orange light over the wide plains of his family ranch. The fields stretched far into the distance, silent except for the gentle sound of cows calling out to each other. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed for a moment and listened. This was his world. Quiet, peaceful, empty. He pushed himself up and dressed in the same worn shirt he always wore for work. He stepped outside, breathing in the cold morning air. The wind brushed his face, reminding him that winter was coming soon. He tightened his jacket and walked slowly to the barn. Every morning was the same routine. Feed the cows, check the fences, clean the barn, repeat. He did not hate it. He just wished he had someone to talk to sometimes. Ethan had lived alone since his parents passed away. They had built the ranch from nothing and taught him everything he knew about taking care of the land. When they were alive, the ranch used to feel full of energy. His father's loud laughter, his mother's sweet singing while she cooked, the smell of fresh bread. Now all of that existed only inside Ethan's memories. He was a strong man with broad shoulders and kind eyes. People respected him, but few really knew him. Many thought he preferred solitude, but the truth was different. He wanted companionship, someone who understood him, someone who brought warmth into the cold silence of his evenings. Love had once seemed possible, but life kept taking people away from him. Somewhere along the way, he stopped believing that love would come again. After finishing all his morning tasks, Ethan walked back to the house and poured himself a cup of black coffee. He sat on the porch and looked at the long dirt road leading away from the ranch. Sometimes he imagined someone would appear down that road, maybe a friend or a new neighbor, but most days, it stayed empty, just like his heart. The wind picked up in the afternoon. Dark clouds began to gather slowly in the sky. Ethan glanced upward, knowing a storm was coming. He didn't mind storms. He had seen many in his life, but he did worry about the animals and the roads turning muddy. He hurried through his chores, trying to finish before the rain hit. By the time evening arrived, the sky had turned almost black. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and sharp flashes of lightning lit up the land. Ethan secured the barn doors and checked the old wooden fence one last time. Raindrops started dropping heavily from the sky, cold and fast. His jacket became soaked in minutes, and his boots sank into the wet ground. He was heading home when he saw something unusual, a pair of headlights far down the road. They flickered like someone was struggling to keep control of the vehicle. His heart jumped. No one visited him at this hour, especially during a storm. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see clearly through the sheets of rain. A car was stuck, wheels spinning helplessly in the muddy path near the entrance of his ranch. Without waiting, Ethan rushed toward the vehicle. Mud splashed up his legs as he ran. Wind pushed against him, but he didn't slow down. When he reached the car, he saw a woman inside, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her face was pale with fear, and her hair was wet, sticking to her cheeks. She looked lost, worried, and desperate for help. Ethan knocked gently on the window. She jumped at the sound, then quickly rolled it down. Her voice shook when she spoke. "Please, help me. I don't know what to do." "Don't worry," Ethan said calmly. "You're stuck, but I'll get you out. Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, just scared." "I'll push the car while you give it a little gas," he instructed. But as she tried, the wheels only spun deeper into the mud. It wasn't working. "You need to get out of the car," Ethan said. "The storm is getting worse. Come inside with me. My house is not far." Her eyes widened with hesitation. She looked back at the road behind her, fear growing stronger in her eyes. "Get inside first," she whispered urgently. "Then, I'll explain everything." Ethan paused for a second. Something about her fear looked bigger than just a storm. He noticed how she kept glancing behind them like she was afraid of someone coming. "Okay," Ethan replied gently. "Come with me. You're safe here." He opened the door for her. She stepped out, trembling from the cold, her clothes soaked through completely. Ethan removed his jacket and wrapped it over her shoulders. She held it tightly, as if the fabric itself could protect her. Together, they started walking toward the ranch house. The wind pushed against them, and rain hit them hard. But Ethan stayed close, guiding her carefully. When they reached the house, he unlocked the door quickly and led her inside. The warm air from the fireplace welcomed them, but the woman continued shivering. He helped her sit near the fire and handed her a towel to dry her face. "Thank you," she said, trying to steady her breathing. Her voice revealed exhaustion and fear. Ethan nodded, studying her quietly. She had gentle eyes but a frightened look in them. Her hands shook as she held the towel. He didn't want to overwhelm her with questions, but curiosity filled his mind. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She took a second to answer. "Claire." "Nice to meet you, Claire. I'm Ethan." She looked into his eyes for a brief moment. He could see deep pain inside her gaze, something she wasn't ready to share yet. "Can I call someone for you?" Ethan offered. "A family member or a friend?" Claire bit her lip and lowered her eyes. "No, I can't call anyone." Ethan didn't push further. Instead, he prepared some hot tea and gave it to her. She held the warm cup carefully, as if she hadn't felt warmth in a long time. The fire crackled softly, and outside the storm roared on. But inside the house, everything felt still. Ethan sat nearby, giving her space. Finally, Claire spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to show up like this. I know it's strange, but I had nowhere else to go." There's nothing to apologize for," Ethan replied. "You're safe here. Whatever is troubling you, you don't have to face it alone." Claire looked up at him again. This time, her eyes softened with a bit of trust. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. "No," Ethan answered. "But you needed help. That's enough reason for me." For the first time since she arrived, she allowed herself a small, grateful smile. Ethan noticed that smile more than he expected to. It did something to the silence of the room, made it less empty. Outside, thunder shook the sky again, and rain hammered against the windows. Claire flinched slightly, her fear returning for a moment. Ethan kept his voice steady and warm. "You're staying here tonight," he told her. "This storm isn't letting anyone go anywhere." Claire nodded without argument. She was clearly too tired to fight it. Ethan brought her a blanket and showed her the guest room. She stood at the doorway for a moment, holding the blanket against her chest. "Thank you, Ethan. Really." He smiled lightly. "Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." She stepped inside and closed the door softly. Ethan waited a moment, making sure she seemed calm. Then he returned to the living room, staring at the fire as his thoughts raced. He knew something wasn't normal. The fear in her eyes, the way she kept looking over her shoulder, the urgency in her voice when she said she would explain later. But even with all the mystery and questions, Ethan didn't regret helping her. For the first time, in a very long time, he didn't feel alone in the house. The sound of a guest moving quietly in the hallway made the place feel alive again. He wondered who Claire really was, why she came to his ranch, what danger she was running from, and he wondered what fate had planned by bringing her right to his doorstep. As the fire continued to burn softly, Ethan realized one thing clearly. His ordinary, lonely life had changed tonight, and deep in his heart, he sensed that this storm had only just begun. The night was long for Ethan. Even after settling on the couch with a blanket, he found it difficult to sleep. The crackling fire kept the room warm, but his thoughts kept his eyes open. A stranger was sleeping just down the hall, a woman he knew nothing about, yet he was deeply concerned for her. Something about Claire's fear felt very real. It wasn't just a simple accident or bad luck that brought her here. She was running from something, or someone. He turned on his side and closed his eyes, trying to rest. The storm still raged outside, wind pushing against the walls like invisible fists. Rain hit the windows again and again, louder than before. In the dark, a crack of thunder lit the sky and shook the house a little. Ethan opened his eyes. He listened for any sound from Claire's room. Everything seemed quiet. Hours passed and eventually, the storm began to weaken. The thunder grew softer. The rain slowed. Soon, a calm silence took over. Ethan's breathing became steady, and finally he drifted into a light sleep. Early morning arrived. The sky outside was gray but peaceful. Drops of water clung to the windows and slowly rolled down. The ranch land was soaked. The dirt road turned into a muddy path. Ethan rubbed his eyes and stood up. His back hurt a little from sleeping on the couch, but he didn't mind. His first thought was Claire. He hoped she had slept better than he did. He walked to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast. He set water to boil and sliced some bread. While he was cooking, he heard the soft sound of footsteps in the hallway. Claire peeked into the kitchen slowly. She looked tired, but better than the night before. Her hair was still slightly messy, and she held the blanket he gave her. "Good morning," Ethan greeted kindly. Claire offered a tiny smile. "Good morning, and thank you again. I didn't mean to be any trouble." "You're not trouble at all," Ethan replied. "Did you sleep okay?" She nodded. "A little. I feel safer here." Ethan noticed how her voice softened when she said, "safe." It made him curious again. But he kept his words gentle. He handed her a warm cup of tea and placed a plate of scrambled eggs and bread in front of her. "You must be hungry," he said. "Eat as much as you want." Claire hesitated, almost shy, then picked up her fork. Her hands didn't shake as much now. The warmth of food and a roof above her head was clearly comforting. Ethan sat across from her, silently sipping his tea. For a moment, it felt like a simple morning, like two friends sharing breakfast. But as soon as Claire looked toward the window, fear returned to her eyes. Her fingers tightened around the cup. Ethan noticed instantly. "You're safe here," he assured her again. "No one knows you're here." Claire looked at him, as if trying to trust those words. She opened her mouth to speak, paused, then took a deep breath. "I should explain," she said slowly. "You deserve to know why I showed up like this." Ethan leaned forward, listening carefully. "I was visiting a nearby town," she began. "I came here to find someone. But last night, I realized someone was watching me." "Watching you?" Ethan repeated quietly. Claire nodded. "A man. He followed me from the hotel. I saw his car behind mine for a long time. When the storm started, I tried to lose him, but my car got stuck. I didn't know where else to go. Then I saw the gate to your ranch. I hoped someone kind lived here." Ethan absorbed every word. He had questions, many of them, but he didn't want to scare her. "You did the right thing coming here," he said firmly. Claire looked down, twisting her fingers nervously. "There's more," she whispered. Before she could continue, a sudden loud noise outside made them both jump. It sounded like a vehicle door slamming shut. Claire's face went cold with fear. "Stay here," Ethan said quickly. He walked to the front window and carefully peeked outside. A large truck was parked near the gate. A man stood next to it, looking around the ranch property as if searching for something or someone. He was tall, wearing dark clothes, and he moved with a determined, almost angry attitude. "Is that the person?" Ethan asked in a low voice. Claire stood up, fear freezing her steps. She didn't have to speak. The terror in her eyes answered the question. Ethan's chest tightened. He turned off the lights quickly and motioned for her to move away from the window. "Go to the back room," he said calmly but firmly. "You'll be safe there." Claire moved immediately, holding her blanket close like a shield. Ethan stepped outside through the side door, closing it quietly behind him. He didn't want trouble, but he wasn't afraid of protecting his home. The man outside turned when he saw Ethan approaching. "Can I help you?" Ethan called out, keeping his tone neutral. The stranger looked him over, his eyes sharp and cold. "I'm looking for someone," he said. "A woman. She might have passed by here." Ethan met his gaze with steady calm. "There's no one here except me." The man seemed unconvinced. He stepped a little closer. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice hard. "She was driving a small car. It stopped working. I just want to make sure she's safe." His words didn't sound caring. They sounded like a warning. Ethan kept his ground. "Like I said, no one here. A long silence followed. The man's eyes narrowed. The storm clouds above were slowly breaking, but the air between them felt heavier than before. Finally, the man stepped back. "If you see her," he said, "tell her I'm not going anywhere." He climbed into his truck and drove away slowly. Ethan watched until the vehicle disappeared down the wet road. Only then did he return inside. Claire stood near the hallway, tears welling in her eyes. She had heard everything. "I'm sorry," she said, breaking down softly. "I didn't want to bring danger to your home." Ethan shook his head. "Don't blame yourself. Nobody should run from fear alone." Claire wiped her eyes, trying to regain her breath. "I didn't think he'd follow me. I thought I had more time." Ethan placed his hand gently on the back of a chair for balance, thinking deeply. He wasn't going to let anything happen to someone who came to him for help. "You don't have to tell me everything right now," he said softly. "But you should know this. I will help you. You're not alone anymore." Claire looked up with a broken expression, a blend of fear and gratitude. It was clear she wanted to trust him. But trust was something she had lost along the way. For the rest of the morning, Ethan stayed alert. He checked the locks, made sure the back door was secure, and even unloaded the old rifle his father once used, not for violence, but for safety. Claire stayed inside, quiet and thoughtful, trying to gather courage. Later, as the sun rose higher and the storm clouds finally disappeared, Claire approached Ethan again. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Ethan smiled gently. "Just focus on resting. We'll figure everything out." She nodded, but this time she looked more determined. Fear still lived in her eyes. But now, there was a new emotion too: hope. The ranch, once silent and lonely, now felt different. A stranger had brought danger and mystery to Ethan's doorstep. But she also brought a spark of life he didn't know he was missing. As the morning light brightened the room, Ethan realized his simple, quiet life was gone. A new journey had begun. A dangerous one, maybe, but deep in his heart, he knew he wouldn't turn away from it. Not while Claire needed him. Claire sat quietly in the living room, staring at the window like the storm outside might return at any moment. Even though the clouds were gone and sunlight warmed the ranch, fear still lived inside her. Ethan noticed this every time she glanced toward the road. He wanted to give her space. He didn't want to force anything out of her. But he knew that the man who came earlier wasn't joking. He would come back. And next time, he might not leave so easily. Ethan placed 2 cups of tea on the table. Claire looked up slowly and gave him a thankful nod. She wrapped both hands around the cup, trying to warm herself. Or maybe trying to calm her heart. "You don't have to tell me everything," Ethan said gently. "But if there's anything you want to share, I'm here to listen." Claire stared into her tea for a long moment. Her lips pressed together, like she was fighting with her own thoughts. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I came here to find you," she said. Ethan froze. He wasn't expecting that. "You know me?" he asked softly. Claire shook her head. "Not personally, but I've heard about you." Ethan's confusion deepened. "How?" Claire looked up, her eyes filled with sincerity and sadness. "My father knew you," she whispered. Ethan blinked. He tried to think back. "Who was your father?" "You saved him," Claire said. "Years ago." Her words hit him like a sudden wind. She continued slowly, carefully choosing each word. "My father was a traveler. He was driving through this region when he had an accident. His car rolled down a small hill near your ranch. He was badly injured, and he said he would have died if a young man hadn't helped him. A young rancher." Ethan's heart paused for a moment. He remembered. One rainy evening many years earlier, he had found a car turned over near the old road. A man inside was unconscious. Trapped. Ethan had dragged him out, called an ambulance, and waited with him until help arrived. He never knew the man's name. After that night, Ethan never saw him again. He never thought much about it, he just did what he believed was right. "That man was your father?" Ethan said quietly. Claire nodded. "He told me that if I ever needed someone kind, Someone I could trust completely. I should find the rancher who saved him. She looked down again. Because he believed that someone who saved a stranger would always be a protector. Ethan felt warmth in his chest. He had no idea that his small act years ago would mean something so big today. "But why did you need me?" Ethan asked gently. "What happened to you?" Claire's fingers tightened around the teacup. She took another deep breath, as if preparing to relive something painful. "My father passed away 4 months ago," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "His loss changed my whole life. And not in a quiet way." A tear ran down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. But Ethan shook his head softly. "You're allowed to cry," he said, making his voice calm and comforting. Claire continued, though her voice shook. "After he passed away, I found out that someone was after something he left behind. Something important. But I didn't even know what it was." She paused, breathing shakily. "The man who came to the gate. His name is Robert. He worked for a business partner of my father." She shivered slightly. "My father trusted the wrong people. They want something from me, something he told them I had." "But you don't have it?" Ethan asked. Claire shook her head. "I don't even know what they're looking for. But they think I do. They think I'm hiding it." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. Claire, who was already hurting, was being pushed into more fear by people who wouldn't leave her alone. "That's why he followed you," Ethan said. "Because he thinks you're running away with something valuable." "Yes," Claire whispered. "I thought if I came here, I could hide for a while. I could think. I could be somewhere safe." Her voice cracked. Ethan reached across the table slowly and placed his hand gently over hers. His touch was firm, but kind. "You are safe here," he said. "I promise." Claire looked at his hand, then into his eyes. In that moment, trust finally began to replace fear. "Thank you," she said, tears returning, but these were softer, the kind that show relief, not terror. Ethan smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just doing what I know my mother and father would want me to do." Claire breathed in deeply, like she could finally fill her lungs again. For the first time since arriving, she looked less like a frightened stranger and more like someone who belonged. Someone who finally found a place where she wasn't hunted. But the peace didn't last long. Around noon, Ethan stepped outside to check the road. The mud had started to dry, but tire tracks were visible. He looked into the distance, hoping that truck didn't return. His instincts were sharp. Now he wouldn't let anyone near the house without knowing their intentions. Inside, Claire watched him from the window. The sight of him standing strong in the sunlight made her feel something warm. It had been a long time since she trusted anyone, a long time since she felt she could breathe. When Ethan walked back in, she spoke softly. "You are a very good man." He scratched the back of his neck shyly. "I'm just trying to help." Claire shook her head. "Many people could help, but only a good person chooses to." Ethan didn't know what to say. Compliments weren't something he heard often. He spent most of his life alone, silent, unnoticed. To have someone appreciate him felt wonderful. They spent the afternoon talking slowly, carefully getting to know one another. Claire told him stories about her father, a cheerful man who loved traveling and meeting new people. Ethan shared stories of his childhood on the ranch, climbing trees, chasing the dog, watching his parents dance on summer nights. For the first time in years, laughter returned to the ranch house. Claire's smile brightened the room more than sunlight ever could, but deep inside, both of them knew danger was still near. As evening approached, Ethan stepped outside again to check around the barn. The air was quiet. Too quiet. He scanned the road. Nothing. Still, he felt a strange tension in the air, like the calm before a new storm. Inside, Claire helped set the dinner table, trying to feel normal again. When Ethan walked in, she noticed worry in his eyes. "Do you think he will come back?" she asked. Ethan didn't hide the truth. "Yes. People like him don't give up easily." Claire lowered her stare. "I'm sorry." But Ethan stepped closer and shook his head. "This isn't your fault. And no one should blame you for fighting for your life." Claire looked up, and something changed in her expression, a spark of courage. "I'm tired of running," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "We'll face whatever comes. Together." Claire's heart warmed at those words. Together. She hadn't heard that word in a long time. That night, Ethan stayed awake again, sitting near the front door. He kept a lantern lit beside him, its warm glow shining across his determined face. He didn't want Claire to worry. She rested better knowing he was there, watching over her. And Ethan? He found strength in protecting her. As she slept peacefully in the guest room, he whispered to himself, "You're safe here, Claire. I won't let anything hurt you." Outside, the stars glowed above the quiet land. The ranch was calm, but only for now. The past had caught up to Claire. And soon, the threat would return stronger, closer, more dangerous. But Ethan was ready for that fight, not because he had to protect the ranch, because he wanted to protect her. The night slowly covered the ranch like a dark blanket. The air was quiet, almost too quiet. Ethan sat near the front door, the old rifle beside him. He didn't want trouble. He didn't want a fight, but he was ready if danger came again. His eyes stayed sharp, watching every shadow that moved outside the window. Inside the guest room, Claire slept peacefully for the first time in days. Her breathing was calm, her face resting without fear. She had finally found a place where she felt protected. Ethan listened to the soft sound of her sleep and promised himself he would keep it that way. As time passed, the moon climbed higher in the sky. A cool wind brushed through the trees. Somewhere on the ranch, a gate creaked, the old metal hinge moving slightly in the breeze. Ethan stood up silently, alert. He walked to the window and looked out into the darkness. Nothing seemed wrong. No movement, no sound. But his heart sensed something. He kept his hand on the rifle and waited. Minutes felt like hours. The night crawled slowly, and the silence pressed around him. Then, suddenly, he heard tires on gravel. A vehicle, coming slowly. Ethan's breathing tightened. The lights of a truck appeared down the road, growing brighter with each second. Claire's fear had been real. Robert had come back. The truck stopped near the house. The engine turned off. Darkness returned. Ethan didn't move. He waited. The sound of a door opening echoed through the still night. Then footsteps, steady, purposeful, getting closer. Ethan's heart beat strong but calm. He had faced storms before. He wasn't afraid of this one either. The footsteps reached the porch. A shadow stood outside the front door. A loud knock broke the silence. Ethan didn't answer. More knocking. Harder. Impatient. "Open the door, rancher," a voice called. It was Robert. Cold, sharp, dangerous. Inside the guest room, Claire woke up. Her eyes widened as she remembered where she was and who might be outside. She stepped into the hallway quietly. Ethan motioned to her with his hand, telling her to stay hidden. She shook her head, fear returning. But she listened and took a step back. Robert knocked again, louder this time. "I know she's in there," he yelled. "You're making a mistake protecting her." Ethan opened the door only halfway. He stood tall, blocking the entrance completely. "Leave," Ethan said firmly. Robert smirked darkly. "You're brave. Good. But bravery won't help you." He tried to push the door open. Ethan didn't move. Robert stared into his eyes. "You don't understand," Robert said. "She has something that belongs to us." "She has nothing of yours," Ethan replied, his voice strong. Robert's expression hardened. "You don't know the whole story, rancher. Her father stole from us valuable information. We need it back. If she cooperates, no one gets hurt." Ethan didn't blink. "She said she doesn't have anything, and I believe her." Robert gave a slow, dangerous smile. "You're trusting the wrong person." He tried to step inside, but Ethan put a firm hand on the door, stopping him. "You're not entering my home," Ethan stated. Robert dropped his smile. His voice turned into a low threat. "Move." "No," Ethan replied simply. Silence stretched, sharp like a knife. "But if we don't get what we want," Robert said quietly, We don't leave anyone behind. At that moment, Claire stepped forward from the hallway. She was shaking, but she refused to hide anymore. Enough, she said, her voice weak at first but growing stronger. Stop lying. Robert looked at her, surprised for only a second before anger sparked in his eyes. My father didn't steal anything, Claire said. He kept your secret. He protected you. Robert stepped closer, but Ethan blocked him again. What secret? Ethan asked, without looking away from Robert. Claire took a deep breath. My father worked with his boss, and he found out they were cheating people. They were stealing money, destroying families, pretending to help them. My father wanted to expose them. He had papers, proof, but he hid them so they couldn't find it. Robert shouted. He betrayed us, and now she's continuing his lies. Claire lifted her chin bravely. I don't have the papers. If I did, I'd use them to make everything right. Robert clenched his fists. You know where they are, and you will tell us. No, Claire whispered, tears in her eyes. My father trusted only kindness. That's why he told me about the rancher who saved him. He wanted me to go to someone good, someone honest, someone like Ethan. Robert's patience broke. He moved forward aggressively. Ethan stepped out onto the porch, forcing Robert back. You're not hurting her, Ethan said. Robert's eyes darkened. Then you leave me no choice. He signaled to someone in the truck. Another man stepped out, strong and unfriendly. Ethan faced them both, his grip tightening on the rifle. You should leave now, Ethan warned. You can't win, Robert said coldly. Ethan looked at Claire for 1 second, just enough to show her that he wasn't afraid, then turned back to the men. But just then, headlights appeared from the other side of the ranch road. Another vehicle. Then another. And another. Claire gasped. Ethan tensed. Police vehicles. Blue and red lights flashed across the fields. Robert's confidence faded fast as officers stepped out, surrounding the area. Claire stared, shocked. But how did they know? Ethan looked toward the barn where he had secretly planted an emergency flare long ago. One bright signal earlier in the night had alerted the sheriff he once helped. He whispered softly to Claire, Your father isn't the only one I ever helped. Robert tried to run back to his truck, but officers stopped him instantly. His partner tried to escape through the field, but police caught him too. Loud shouts and the sound of handcuffs clicked in the air. Claire stood frozen in the doorway, tears falling, but this time they were tears of relief. Ethan stepped toward her and spoke gently. It's over. She looked at him, shaking her head in disbelief. Ethan smiled slightly. I just kept my promise. Police gathered statements, took Robert and his partner away, and then left the ranch quiet once more. The sun began to rise, painting golden light over the land. Claire stepped outside and breathed deeply, her first peaceful morning in a long time. Ethan stood beside her, arms crossed, looking strong but calm. What will you do now? Ethan asked softly. Claire looked at the horizon, her expression thoughtful. I want to stay somewhere safe. Somewhere I can build a new life. Somewhere peaceful. Her eyes moved to Ethan. Maybe here? She asked carefully. Ethan felt something warm fill his heart. He had lived alone for so long that he forgot how it felt to share his life with someone. You're welcome to stay, he said, as long as you want. Claire smiled, a real smile, bright and full of hope. Days passed. Claire helped with the ranch chores. Her laughter returned. And Ethan found joy in every moment they worked together. The silence that once filled his home was now replaced by life, by companionship, by the gentle sound of a new beginning. One evening, Claire and Ethan stood outside as the sun set. The sky turned shades of orange and pink. Claire looked at Ethan with thankful eyes. My father told me I should find someone good, she said softly. Someone who would protect me. Someone who would care. I think he meant for me to find you. I think Ethan felt his heart beat stronger than ever before. He didn't know what would happen tomorrow. But he knew one thing clearly now: he wanted her in his life. He looked into her eyes and said, You're not alone anymore, Claire. She stepped closer and smiled warmly. I know. The wind blew gently across the fields. The ranch no longer felt empty. It had become a home again, not just for Ethan, but for Claire too. She came looking for safety. But she found more. She found a place to belong. And Ethan, he found something he thought he had lost forever. Someone to call family. Someone who might one day become much more.